Ayubowan. So in this lesson, we are going to focus on test 3, which is being extracted from Cambridge Book 9. Now remember, this is for the academic students, and please pause the video here, right? Because you are going to do the paper for 1 hour, time yourself, download the paper and do it. And once you have finished, you can start watching the video from there onwards to discuss the answers. Off you go. Right, so hopefully this is after 1 hour that you're watching, right? You've completed your reading test. Let's have a look at the answers. So test 3, you've got all the answers here, reading passage 1, 2 and 3, right? I'd like you to jot down the answers. Right, let me just center this a bit. Right, and there you go. Please mark it, make sure the spellings are correct, okay? Again, this can be in any order, so it can be, for an example, just one. It could be J, F, E, A, D. It can be in any order. As long as you have these letters, then it's perfectly fine, okay? Maintenance, check for your spelling, please. Slow turning or just slow is fine, but only turning answer is wrong, okay? Again, Jupiter, Saturn, you could have Saturn, Jupiter. Sensors, circuits, you could have circuits and sensors, the other way around. Right, okay, so let's discuss the answers. Passage 1. Attitudes to language, okay? Now, little by little throughout the lessons, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you follow the answers. Now, I've done book 7, I've done book 8 completely, now I'm in book 9, okay? So, towards the latter part, you could understand now on your own because I've done a lot with you. I've shown you where the answers are. So, more or less, it's a matter of you picking up on the answers on your own now, right? But let's discuss from the start a few questions, right? So questions 1 to 8. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer in reading passage 1? Okay. So there are understandable reasons why arguments occur about the language. So let's see. What are the key words? Understandable reasons. Okay. Arguments, and then language, right? So if you go to the first para, the writer argues it is not easy to be systematic and objective about language study. Popular linguistic debate regularly deteriorates into invective and polemic. Language belongs to everyone. So most people feel they have a right to hold an opinion about it. And when opinions differ, emotions can run high. So the writer lists some understandable reasons for why the arguments occur about language. So yes, I think he does, and the answer would definitely be yes. Question number 2. People feel more strongly about language education than about small difference in language usage. Let's see. They feel more about language education than language usage. Go to the last bit of para 1 where the writer indicates arguments can start easily over minor points of the usage and over major policies of language or linguistic education. This means people feel strong about both, not just over one. They say usage as over major policies of linguistics. So both are equal there. So therefore, I would say the answer is no. Next one. Our assessment of a person's intelligence is affected by the way he or she uses language, right? Go to para 2. The writer says, linguistic factors influence how we judge personality, intelligence, social status and educational standards, job aptitude and many other areas of identity and social survival. Okay? Therefore, how a person uses the language is one of the ways which affects the way we judge that person in terms of intelligence and other factors. So yes, it is an assessment and they judge us based on the language we use. So definitely answer is yes. Question number 4. Prescriptive grammar books cost a lot of money to buy in the 18th century. Now, para 4 and 5 talks about the 18th century. However, they don't talk about whether the prescriptive grammar books cost a lot to buy in the 18th century. So, the answer would be not given. Prescriptivism still exists today. Go to para 4. The writer says, all the major languages have been studied prescriptively, especially in the 18th century approach to the writing of grammars and dictionaries. Some usages are prescribed to be learned and followed accurately, others are proscribed, okay, to be avoided. In this early period, there were no half measures. Usage was either right or wrong, and it was the task of the grammarian not simply to record alternatives, but to pronounce judgment upon them. So what it means is what? These attitudes are still with us means it still exists today, right? So therefore, the answer would be true. Right, question number 6. According to descriptives, right, it is pointless to try to stop language change, right? So let's have a look at it in para 5. The approach is summarized in the statement that it is the task of the grammarian to describe, not prescribe, to record the facts of linguistic diversity and not to attempt the impossible tasks of evaluating language variation or halting language change. So it is pointless to try means it's attempting to try that impossible task. Stop means to halt. So yes, according to descriptives, it is pointless to try to stop the language change. Yes, it is pointless. So answer is true. 7. Descriptivism only appeared after the 18th century. So let's have a look at what the writer says in para 5. So this approach summarized the statement, right, it goes on and then it says, to record the facts of linguistic diversity and not to attempt impossible tasks of evaluating language variation or halting change. In the second half of the 18th century, we already find advocates of this view, such as Joseph, whose Rudiments of English Grammar insist that the custom of speaking is the original and only the standard way of any language. So what it says appeared after the 18th century? No. Okay. It was there in the 18th century as well. So the answer is false. Both descriptivists and prescriptivists have been misinterpreted. What do you think? So go to the last para. It says, in your own time, the opposition between descriptivists and prescriptivists has often become extreme without sides painting unreal pictures of the other, right? So both are misinterpreted. Yes, both sides are unreal. So the answer is true and yes is the answer. Questions 9 to 12. Complete the summary using the list of words A to I below, right? So A to I, you should be going through it in your reading passage or paper, right? So as I always tell you, paper-based students, keep the paper in front of you. Computer-based students, you should have it on the screen on one side, and on the other side, you should have my video running. So when I tell you to go to para 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, you quickly scroll up and down and look at what we are talking about, right? Right, so I think in 9 to 12 it was fairly easy, right? I've given you the description here. So for 9 the answer is H, for 10 it's F, they're quite straightforward ones, okay? 11 it's A and 12 it's C. I mean, I've given you the answer structure here as well, and they're fairly quite straightforward answers. So I thought I'll just, quickly run through those. 13. Choose the correct letter A, B, C or D. Okay. What is the writer's purpose in reading passage 1? So here you have A, B, C and D. Let's have a look at passage 1. In this passage, if you read through, the writer provides some views of language. The very first one is about prescriptivism, which is the view that one variety of language has an inherently higher value than others, and out of this ought to be imposed on the whole of the speech community. Next is descriptivism, which is summarized in the statement that is the task of the grammarian to describe, not prescribe, to record the facts of linguistic diversity and not to attempt impossible tasks in evaluating the language variation or halting it, right? So if you have a look at it, argue in favor of particular approach, not really. To present historical account for different views in language seems like an okay answer, okay. To describe the differences between spoken and written, never spoke about that. To show how certain view of language has been discredited, clearly didn't talk about that. So the most appropriate answer at this point would be B. Okay? Right. Question number 14 to 17. Read passage 2 and it has 6 paragraphs. Which paragraph contains the following information? The location of the first test site. Okay, so the key words are first test site. In paragraph C, the writer says, the first station is expected to be installed off Limermouth in Devon shortly to test the technology in a venture jointly funded by the Department of Trade and Industry and the European Union. Okay, so it's there, the location, first one is there in para C, so the answer should be C. Okay. The way of bringing the power produced on one side back into Britain. Okay, so bringing power back to Britain. Go to para E. It says, Dr. Bahaj has done most work on Alderney where there are powerful currents. The single undersea turbine farm would produce far more power than needed for the Channel Islands, and most would be fed into the French grid and be re-imported into Britain. Re-imported means brought back into Britain via cable under the channel. So where do you find that information? In para E. So you can see how important it is to understand synonyms, because if you don't understand synonyms or the meanings of these words, you will find it difficult to approach the reading paper. So this is quite important, okay? So if you had studied with me throughout focusing where I did on, student-centered learning, getting your dictionary out, going through the words, right? If you had done that learning style and if you're still doing it, then the chances are that you are working on your score to get a higher score, right? So that independent learning is very important, especially when you're watching a video and trying to mark your answers, all right? So, a reference to a previous attempt by Britain to find an alternative source of energy. Go to para A, where the writer indicates, unlike wind power, which Britain originally developed and then abandoned for 20 years, allowing the Dutch to make it a major industry, undersea turbines could become a big export earner to island nations such as Japan and New Zealand. So the British made an earlier attempt to use wind power as an alternative source of energy. Okay, so I think a reference to previous attempt of alternative source of energy definitely in para A. 17. Mention of the possibility of applying technology from another industry, definitely in para C, where you see the technology of dealing with the hostile saline environment under the sea has been developed in the North Sea oil industry. Okay, right. Questions number 18 to 22. Okay, so having a look at questions number 18 to 22, right? Which of the 5 of the following claims about tidal power are made by the writer? Okay, so go to para A. The writer says, unlike wind, the tides are predictable and the power input is constant. So option A, right? I've put inside the brackets which option it is talking about. This technology raises the prospect of Britain becoming self-sufficient in renewable energy and drastically reducing its carbon dioxide emissions, which is option D. If tides, wind and wave power are all developed, Britain would be able to close gas, coal and nuclear power plants. So that is option E. And export renewable power to other parts of Europe, which is option F. This means that tidal power is a more reliable source of energy than wind power and it would cut down on air pollution. Besides, tidal power could contribute to the closure of many existing power stations in Britain, which is option E, and could be a means of increasing national income because undersea turbines could become a big export earner, which is option F. Okay? Right, so B, C, G, H and I are either not mentioned or they are false, but the given options were definitely mentioned, right? At the end of para C, you find option J as well. So A, D, E, F, J. Okay? Right. Questions number 23 to 26 label the diagram. Okay? So 23, at the end of paragraph D, right, the writer argues that the towers will stick out of the water and be lit to warn shipping and also be designed to be lifted out of the water for maintenance and to clean seaweed from the blades, right? So the whole tower can be raised for maintenance and the extraction of seaweed from the blades. So that is quite clear, right? 24, sea life not in danger due to the fact that blades are comparatively what? Okay, go to para D. The writer says fish and other creatures are thought unlikely to be at risk from the relatively slow turning blades. So they are comparatively slow turning. Okay. 25 and 26. Air bubbles result from the what behind blades. This is known as what? So in the last paragraph, the writer says, right, one technical difficulty is cavitation, where low pressure behind turning blade causes air bubbles. So air bubbles result from what? Low pressure. This is known as what? Cavitation. Okay, so we know that. The last passage, right, and we're starting with question number 27. Passage is about information theory, the big data. Some people call it data, okay. Which paragraph contains the following information? An explanation of the factors affecting the transmission of information, right. So if you go to paragraph D, the writer says, noise usually means unwanted sounds which interfere with genuine information. Information theory generalizes this idea via theorems that capture the effects of noise with mathematical precision. In particular, Shannon showed that noise sets a limit on the rate at which information can pass along communication channels while remaining error-free. Okay, so you could find the answer definitely in para D. 28. An example of how unnecessary information can be omitted. Okay, so if you go to para F, the writer says, Shannon also laid foundations of more efficient ways of storing information by stripping out superfluous, redundant bits, right, of data which contributed little real information. Okay, so very clearly you can see that it is there in para F. 29. A reference to Shannon's attitude to fame, right? Go to para B. While at Bell Laboratories, Shannon developed information theory but shunned the resulting acclaim. So you can see a reference to Shannon's attitude to fame. She shunned it. Okay. B. 30. Details of a machine capable of interpreting incomplete information. Okay. So if you go to para E, the writer says, other codes have become a part of everyday life, such as the Universal Product Code or barcode, which uses a simple error detecting system that ensures supermarket checkout lasers can read the price even on, say, a crumbled bag of crisps. So I think details of the machine capable of interpreting incomplete information comes from para E. 31, right? A detailed account of an incident involving information theory, right? So if you go to the first para, in April 2002, an event took place which demonstrated one of the many applications of information theory, right? The space probe Voyager, launched in 1977, had sent back spectacular images of Jupiter and Saturn and then soared out of the solar system on a one-way mission to the stars, right? So a detailed incident about, I think you could take answer E. Okay. 32, a reference to what Shannon initially intended to achieve, right? So if you go to para C, he set out with an apparently simple aim, pin down the precise meaning of the concept of information. Very clearly what he or she wanted to achieve. Rather, Shannon is he. So what he wanted to achieve in his research. Clear? Para C. Okay. 33 to 37, the Voyager space probe. Okay. So here, let's start with 33, 34 questions number, right? The probe transmitted pictures of both something and something, then left the what? Okay. So if you take here to go into para A, the writer says the space probe Voyager, launched in 1977, sent back spectacular images of what? Jupiter and Saturn. So 33 should be Jupiter and Saturn. And then soared out the solar system on a one-way mission to the stars. And then left. Soared out means left. Left the what? Solar system. So very clear. Right? 35. Scientists fear that both something and something were about to stop working. Go to para A. The writer argues that sensors and circuits were the brink of failing. NASA experts realized that they had to do something to lose contact with their probe forever. So, what to? The sensors and the circuits were about to stop working. Clearly, you have your answers there. 36. The only hope was to tell the probe to replace them with something, but the distance made the communication difficult. Go to the first para. The solution was to get a message to the Voyager to instruct to use spares to change the failing parts. So what did they have to replace them with? Spares. 37. A blank was used to transmit the message at the speed of light. Go to para A. By means of a radio dish belonging to NASA's Deep Space Network, the message was sent out into the depths of the space. Even traveling at the speed of light, it took over 11 hours to reach its target, far beyond the speed of Pluto. So what did they use? By means of a radio dish. So your answer is radio dish. Questions number 38 to 40. Do the following statements agree with the information given in reading passage 3? The concept of describing something as true or false was the starting point for Shannon in his attempt to send messages over distance, right? So your keywords are describing, starting point, true or false. Let's go to para C. The writer says he set out with an apparently simple aim to pin down the precise meaning of the concept of information. The most basic form of information, Shannon argued, is whether something is true or false, which can be captured in the binary unit or bit. So I think this is true, right? 39. The amount of information that can be sent in a given time period is determined with reference to the signal strength and noise level. Go to paragraph D. Shannon showed that noise sets a limit on the rate at which information can pass along communication channels while remaining error-free. This rate depends on the relative strengths of the signal and noise traveling down the communication channel on its capacity. So this is true. The rate tells how much information passes in a period. So definitely the answer is true. So definitely the answer is true and it is in para D, right? Moving on to question number 40. Products have now been developed which can convey more information than Shannon had anticipated as possible, okay? So if you go to para E and towards the end, the writer says, as recently as 1993, engineers made a breakthrough by discovering so-called turbo codes which come very close to Shannon's ultimate limit for the maximum rate that data can be transmitted reliably, right? So the products are turbo codes. So these do not exceed the limit that Shannon suggested for the rate of a reliable transmission. So definitely the answer is then false. Right, so I think again we've reviewed all the questions in this test, right, which is test 3. So this brings us to the end of that discussion where we reviewed all the answers from Cambridge Book 9, Test 3.